So warm welcome to all of you here in the synagogue sanctuary this morning, just before we go online and invite everyone in from their homes. So I'm going to invite those of you who are comfortable standing to stand as we begin our service together. We're on page 112 for those using a siddur. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkonotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkonotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkonotecha Yisrael. Let's sit down. We've just sung that one line of blessing from the prophet Bilam, intent on a curse for the Israelite people. This blessing comes out of his mouth, the blessing that we use for every morning service, whether we're praying in Manchester, Marrakesh, Munich, wherever. We use these words to open our morning service. For those at home, we're used to transforming our living rooms, our kitchens into a sanctuary. For those here in the synagogue together, we do so being together. Let me share some words just about being in a synagogue and what our synagogue means for us. This is from a conservative prayer book in the States. If you'd like to peek in your siddur at page 311, please do so. Otherwise, let me guide you through the idea of what a synagogue can be for us. The synagogue is called Beit Knesset, a house of meeting, where we meet here in friendship to share joys and sorrows, renew our common memories and hopes, as we'll do today with 2 anniversaries. The synagogue is called Beit Midrash, a house of study, where we learn here to know our heritage, to understand its values, and to consider how it applies to our daily lives. And the synagogue is called Beit Tefillah, a house of prayer. May all who come here to worship find inner peace and know and feel that they are in God's presence. So may the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness, pride, envy, and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May this synagogue be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be for all who enter the doorway leading to a richer and more meaningful life. We turn back to 113, where we mark the reunion of our soul and our bodies as we do so every morning. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi torahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi torahi. Ata barata, ata yatsata, ata nafachta bi. Me'ata mashamra berkirbi. Elohai, Elohai, shenatama, shenatata bi tahorahi. Baruch she'ama v'haya ha'olam baruchu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. המחולל בפי עמו משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידיו ועבדיו. בשפחות ובזמרות נגדלך ונמליכך. Malkeinu Yachid Chei Ha'olamim. Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mechulal B'Tishbachot. And take us to page 116. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Ani mzamira v'shirim erok, ki elecha nafshi tarok, nafshi chimda b'tzel yadecha, tahat kol rasodecha. Midei dabri b'chvodecha, omer libi el dodecha, yerav nasichi alecha, ki nafshi tarog elecha. Let's stand for the Yishtabach as we prepare to go to the Baruch Hu, our public call to prayer. We're on the foot of page 116. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh B'Shamayim UVa'aretz, Ki Lacha Na'eh Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu, Shir Shvacha Chalel V'Zimra, Brachot V'Hodaot, Me'ata Va'ad Olam, Baruch Atah Adonai, Habocher B'Shirei Zimra. Page 135, as we move to calling each other to prayer, having marked Shabbat, having marked our arrival into our synagogues or into the spaces at home that you mark as your sacred place of prayer. Baruchu et Adonai ha'mavorach, Baruch Adonai ha'mavorach le'olam va'ed. So as we sit, we mark the two blessings before the Shema. The first about the wider world around us, the change of seasons, light and dark. And the second, our love and particular relationship with God through love. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzei or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei at hakol, hame'er la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit, ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, melach ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, v'al morei or she'asita, yefarucha selah, Baruch Atah Adonai, yotzeh hamorot. Ahava rabbah haftanu, Adonai Eloheinu, chemla gudola v'yitera chamalta aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, ba'avur avotenu, shebatchu v'chad v'talmidem chukei chayim, ken tachanenu u'talmidenu, v'ten b'libeinu lahavin u'lahaskil, lishmoa, lilmod u'lalamed, lishmo v'la'asot u'lekayam et kol divrei toratecha, bi'ahava, v'ha'eh enenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libenu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levavenu li'ahava u'li'era et shamecha, kivanu v'charta li'achadacha bi'ahava. Baruch Atah Adonai, habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Let's stand for the Shema. I see you family finding you need a couple more seats. Just take them, just take from behind. I think we were expecting babies, but this is not a baby. She needs a seat. Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we go into the Shema, having established ourselves as a congregation ready to pray together. We praise you, O God, in love. You have called Israel, your people, to serve you. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. Let's offer the Shema together. Although you're not allowed to sing, although I'd love for you to join me, you are allowed to read. So let's offer the Shema together. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol mo'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi matzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'leftecha v'derech u'v'shoppecha u'v'kumecha u'kashatam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu lototafot beinenecha u'katavtam al muzot beitecha u'visharecha. Let's sit. Leman tiskaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kadoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Emet v'yatziv v'yashav v'kayam v'tov v'yafeh hadavar hazeh aleinu leolam va'ed. Emet she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu malkeinu melech avotenu yotzreinu tzur yeshuatenu podenu matzilenu me'olam hu shemecha ein Elohim zulatecha. Emet ata hu rishon v'ata hu acharon u'mibaladecha ein lanu Moshiach. Mi Mitzrayim galtanu Adonai Eloheinu mi beit avadim patitanu. Moshe Miriam uvenei Yisrael lacha anu shira b'simcha rabba va'amru kulam mi chamocha belim Adonai mi kamocha neder b'kodesh nora tehilot oseh felet. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, גואלנו אדוני, צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל גאל ישראל Amen. Let's stand for the tefillah. We're on page 140, and an invitation to any younger members of our congregation this morning to use our family room at the back of the sanctuary where there are puzzles, Shabbat toys and games. You can play in there, you can bring the toys back in here. We'll need you to take out the cuddly Torah scrolls from the Ark when we reach the Torah service. But for now, those of us left, page 140, let's stand for the Amidah. Adonai sefata tiftach ufia gita hilatecha. Adonai sefata tiftach ufia gita hilatecha. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei v'Nehem, Lama'an Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. We sanctify your name on earth, as in the prophet's vision the hosts of heaven sing your praise above, for so it is written. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot, Malach al haaretz, Kavodo, Kavodo male olam, Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. Hallelujah. From generation to generation, we will make known your greatness. To the end of time, we'll proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O our God, shall never depart from our lips. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el, HaKadosh. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming, we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for Shabbat and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. We're on page 100. So join me in reading. The rule of thumb is if I can't hear you properly singing, if you're mumbling, that is okay. But just that's our only rule, is not to sing however much you want to. And I know it diminishes our experience in the synagogue not being able to sing together. But you get the drift of what you're allowed. Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Shabbat enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Makadesh HaShabbat. Ratzeh Adonai Eloheinu b'yamcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam b'yahavat takabel, u'tehilo ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadacha b'yira na'avod. I'm very conscious that we mark and celebrate two special anniversaries this Shabbat, and the couples have chosen to bring it here within our congregation at prayer. So perhaps as we offer Modim Anachnu Lach, we can really think of the joys of those partnerships. Modim Anachnu Lach, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם ועד. צור חיינו, מגן ישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור. נודה לך נספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uvaracha, hen v'chesed v'rahamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Sim shalom, sim shalom. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. Let's take a few moments for silent prayer. God, my tongue from speaking evil, my lips from telling lies. Even when others curse me, may my soul be silent and humble as the dust to all. Open my heart to your teaching. Make me eager to do your will. Dissuade those who seek to harm me, and let not their plans prevail. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom aleinu Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. So we finish the Amidah on page 146, having snuck in Vashamru, but we're in our morning service, and we turn now to our Torah service. We are on page 480. Ein kamocha ve'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kamasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol tov v'ador. Let's stand up. The scroll is being undressed with a slight change to choreography as we are safe during COVID. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti unon moromama Shemo yachdav. Sit down as we go into our Torah reading this morning. This is the Torah reading that surely was picked up by the Hollywood studios when they made Shrek and made a film of a talking donkey, and here indeed is the talking donkey that gave rise to it. So this portion, known from the name of the Moabite king Balak, one of the few Torah portions that we have in the whole of Torah that is named after a non-Hebrew, a non-Israelite. And I believe they are pretty precious for the lessons that they teach. Balak instructs the local wizard, renowned for his curses and blessings coming true, and asks Bilam to curse the people Israel. And we know that what happens instead is that Bilam gets halted on his way to curse by his donkey, who is given the gift of speech, who is able to see the angel of God standing in the way, not before the donkey gets beaten mercilessly, until the donkey is able to reveal himself and tell Bilam what he's seen. This is known as a really critical portion because of how Hebrews and Israelites are described in this portion. The blessing that we get, Ma Tovu, that we open our services with, and the interplay really between the donkey and between Bilam. We're told in Torah that whenever a portion begins, that someone wakes up early and saddles their ass, something important is going to happen. It happens with Abraham when he's asked to sacrifice Isaac, and it happens here as well. And there's almost a link made between the two of them. So here we have the story of Bilam as he goes on his way. As I said earlier, this is a lovely service for us as we get to celebrate and mark 2 anniversaries. So your golden anniversary, Roger and Kitty, surrounded by much of your family here, continuing that L'Ador Vador. So it gives me great pleasure in calling you up. In our COVID times, I am going to back away as you bless the Torah, and then I'm going to ask you to stand on the steps while the Torah is read. Ya'amdu, Aharon ben Moshe Halevi v'chaya Sarah bat Mordechai levarech et haTorah. Let me just point out, so here, and I'm just going to back up while you...
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMavorach, Baruch Adonai HaMavorach L'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bo habanu mikol ha'amim, v'noten lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So I'm...
Baruch Adonai HaMavorach, Baruch Adonai HaMavorach Olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher baka banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Lovely. Amen. So if I can ask you to go on the other side of the screen and just lean against that reading desk to stay... So you can lean against, both of you, or you can sit, whatever feels right for you now. I believe those of you at home are waiting for the Torah to be shared. So those of you here might have a Chumash. If you don't have a Chumash, I will read and translate Well, I'll be doing that anyway, whether you've got a chumash or not, actually. So that we can hear the story of Bilam, the prophet, wizard, prophet, sorcerer, however we like to think of him. Let me just move my books.
Sorry, the share's taking a while. My computer isn't being very cooperative.
Don't worry, Valerie. ויקם בלעם בבוקר וחבוש את אתונו וילך עם שרי מואב ויחר אף אלוהים כי הולך הוא ויתייצב מלאך אדוני בדרך לשטן לו הוא רוכב על אתונו ושני נעריו עמו ותראה האתון את מלאך אדוני ניצב בדרך וחרבו שלופה בידו ותת האתון מן הדרך ותלך בשדה ויח בלעם את האתון לחטותה הדרך ויעמוד מלאך אדוני במשול הכרמים גדה מזה וגדה מזה ותראה האתון את מלאך אדוני ותלחץ אל הקיר ותלחץ את רגל בלעם אל הקיר ויוסף להכותה ויוסף מלאך אדוני אבוא ויעמוד במקום צר אשר אין דרך לנטות ימין ושמאל ותראה האתון את Aton is the donkey, so every time you hear Aton, you know the donkey is like the major character here. ותראה האתון את מלאך אדוני ותרבץ תחת בלעם ויחר אף בלעם ויח את האתון במקל ויתח אדוני את פי האתון ותאמר לבלעם מה עשיתי לך כי הכיתני זה 3 רגלים ויאמר בלעם לאתון כי התעללת בי לו יש חרב בידי כי אתה הרגתיך ותאמר האתון אל בלעם הלא אנוכי אתונך אשר רכבת אלי מעודך עד היום הזה הסכמתי לעשות לך כה ויאמר לו ויגל אדוני את עיני בלעם וירא את מלאך אדוני נצב בדרך וחרבו שלופה בידו ויקוד וישתחוו לאפיו ויאמר אליו מלאך אדוני על מה הכית את האתון זה 3 רגלים הנה אנוכי יצאתי לשטן כי יראת הדרך לנגדי ותרני האתון ותת לפני זה 3 רגלים אולי ננתת מפני כי אתה גם אתכם הרגעתי ואותה הייתי ויאמר בלעם אל מלאך אדוני החטאתי כי לא ידעתי כי אתה ניצב לקראתי בדרך ואתה אמרה בעיניך אשובה לי ויאמר מלאך אדוני אל בלעם לך עם האנשים ואפס את הדבר אשר אדבר אליך אותו ותדבר וילך בלעם עם שרי בלק. So this is a pretty dramatic moment in Torah. You can imagine that a lot of B'nai Mitzvah, Bat Mitzvah or Bar Mitzvah haggle over getting Bilam and Balak as their portion. So Bilam saddles his ass in the morning and goes with the princes of Moab, just as he's been paid to go with them, ready to curse. But God's anger flares up. And an angel of God stands in the way of the path in order to play with him, in order to vex him or fool him, really. And Bilam is happily sitting on his donkey and has 2 young men with him, exactly the same as Abraham has when he goes up to Mount Moriah. But the donkey sees the angel of God standing in the middle of the path with a sword in its hand, and the donkey stalls on the path and stops on the path and swerves off into the field. And Bilam starts to hit the donkey and beats him hard to get him back onto the path. And the angel of God stands there right in the center of the path leading into the vineyards with a fence or a wall, we think, either side, meaning there's very little place. And a wall either side, the donkey. And the donkey sees the angel of God standing there, and the donkey crushes up against the wall. The detail is extraordinary. I mean, truly, this could have been written directly for Hollywood. The donkey squashes up against the wall and literally crushes Bilam's foot against the wall. And of course, what does Bilam do? Continues to beat the donkey. And then the angel of God continues to cross in front by standing in the space in front of the donkey, standing there straight, but now it's in a very narrow path where there is no space to turn either to the left or to the right. And the donkey sees the angel and finally sits down on the ground, crouches beneath Bilam, literally stops and goes down on the floor. And Bilam is furious, as you can imagine, and beats the donkey with his stick. And suddenly the angel of God opens the donkey's mouth so that the donkey is able to speak. Really intriguingly, the donkey is female here. So the donkey is able to speak to Bilam and says, "What have I ever done to you that you should beat me like this 3 times?" And Bilam says to the donkey, we don't get any shock from Bilam that suddenly his animal is speaking to him. Bilam says to the donkey, "Because you've humiliated me. Honestly, if I had a sword in my hand, I would have absolutely murdered you right now." But the donkey answers and says to Bilam, "How long have you been riding me? Have I, from ages ago until today, have I ever behaved this way towards you before?" And Bilam agrees, no, that is true. And then God opens the eyes of Bilam, and Bilam is able to see the angel of God standing right there in the path with a sword drawn in the angel's hand. And what does he do? Obviously, Bilam falls to the ground, prostrate with his face to the ground, and says to the angel, and the angel says to him, "Why did you beat your donkey 3 times when I was standing here really trying to trick the donkey and you?" Which is a tricky question, really, because Bilam didn't know. But I guess the angel is calling on him. Why didn't he trust his instinct that the donkey has never behaved like this before? With the donkey standing in the path and God testing the donkey. "And the donkey saw me," the angel said, "and yet you continued to beat the donkey 3 times with your stick in front of me seeing." And so Bilam answers and says, and actually you could have killed, perhaps you were choosing to kill me or the donkey. And Bilam answers saying, "I have sinned, truly I have sinned, and I realized that I didn't know, and I didn't know that you were standing there and that you were coming for me. And now, truly, if I'm really troubling you, if this matter seems bad in your eyes, then let me return back." And so Bilam straight away says, "I won't do the task in hand." But the angel answers him and says, "No, this is what you're going to do. You are going to go with these men, but nothing should come out of your mouth unless I have told you what to say." So Bilam goes with the princes of Balak. So I don't know how this portion, and you and your children can decide how this portion manages to bless you with the talking donkey, whether you'll be able to draw out a meaning over lunch today of why this was the one that you should have. So I'm going to offer an anniversary blessing a little later, drawing all together. But for now, I would love to offer you a Misha Berach after you have offered the closing blessing. So you go over here to the closing blessing. And then I think Michael is going to come up and raise the scroll.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan lanu Torah temet barahu. Olam notah batohenu Baruch atah Adonai Natan HaTorah. Amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. If I ask you to go to the other side of the screen to keep you safe. I find it very beautiful that you both chose to say those blessings. Just one sec, Michael, if you just step back one sec. And Misha Barak for both of you. Let's stand ready for the scroll to be raised, for you to be blessed by the scroll for this day, but more about anniversaries later. Misha Barak Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzhak, v'Yaakov, v'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yavarech et Aharon ben Moshe Halevi. V'chaya Sarah bat Mordechai b'yachad. May you both be blessed together. She'alu hayom lichvot hamakom v'lichvot hashabbat hakadosh baruch hu yivarech otam ve'et kol mishpachtam v'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'asehem b'chol ma'aseh yadehem im kol Yisrael achehem v'achotehem v'nomar. Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel and Leah, bless both of you, Roger and Kitty, who have come up to the Torah together in honor of God, of Shabbat. May the Holy One ever to be praised bless them, their family, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, and prosper them in all that they undertake, together with all their brothers and sisters in the house of Israel, and let us say, Amen. So stay standing, everyone, while Michael lifts the scroll for us. Thank you, Roger and Kitty. If you nip down, but there'll be another moment for blessing. I'll just let Michael take the scroll for me to introduce Haftarah and our second anniversary couple in our Shabbat service this morning. Thank you, Michael. Feel free to sit down. So I move now to our second anniversary couple, to Ruth and David Hoffman. We couldn't be more delighted to have you with us from home and to mark this moment with you. Very special and poignant, as I think your wedding was literally this week. So it's very important that you are with us this morning. So a hearty mazal tov to you. The Haftarah this morning comes from the book of Joshua. Strange book as it is, dealing so much with conquest and change, but nonetheless there is this constant linking up to what's happened before in Torah. Maybe as a sense of reassurance that the story continues, but here this piece has been chosen because we hear the story of Bilam, Balak and the donkey once more. Over to you, David.
Okay, my sound. Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, thank you.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher v'intochi baratzah v'lehem marim Baruch Adonai abocher b'torah Moshe Ab v'Yisrael Ab v'bnei Tzedek. Joshua gathered the tribes of Israel to Shechem and summoned the heads, the judges, and the officers of Israel. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, "Thus says Israel, the God of Israel, long ago the fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of and of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond it and led him to all the land of and made his offspring many. I gave him and to Isaac gave Jacob and Esau, and I gave all the hill country of Seir to possess. But Jacob and his children went down to Egypt, and I was Moses and Aaron, and I planted with what I did in the midst of it, and after I brought you up. Then I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came, and the Egyptians pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen at the Red Sea. And when they cried to the Eternal was between you and the Egyptians, and made the sea come upon them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt. And you lived in the wilderness a long time. Then I brought you to the land of the Amorites, who lived on the other side of the Jordan. They fought you, and I gave them into your hand, and you took possession of the land, and I destroyed them before you. Then the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel. And he sent and invited Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not listen to Balaam. Indeed, he blessed you. So I delivered you out of his hand. And you went over Jordan and came to Jericho. And the leaders of Jericho fought against you, and also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. And I gave them into your hand. I sent the hornet before you, which drove them out before you, the two kings of the Amorites. It was not by your sword or by your bow. I gave you a land on which you had not laid, and cities that you had not built, and you dwell in them. You eat the fruit of the vineyard, the olive orchards that you did not plant. Now that you fear the Eternal, and serve the Eternal in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Eternal. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Eternal, then choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Eternal. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, Sovereign of the universe. You have been our source of strength and righteousness throughout the ages, the faithful God whose word is deed, whose every word is true and just. Al HaTorah, Ve'al HaAvodah, Ve'al Hanvi'im, Ve'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh, Shenatata Lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Likdusha v'limnucha, L'chavod u'tifaret, Al HaKol, Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu modim lach, V'mavarchim otach, Yitbarach Shimcha, Befi kol chai, Tamid le'olam va'ed, Baruch Ata Adonai, Makadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Koach to you both. Such lovely chanting, David. We wish you were here in the sanctuary with us, you and Ruth. And we look forward to blessing your anniversary in a moment with a special treat from Renzo at the end of the service. So we are now page 400. And no, we're not. Let's offer community prayers first. So Barbara, if I can ask you to come up to the desk to offer community prayers. Let's stand ready to put the scroll back in the ark. Yes?
Eternal God, we ask your blessing on our Queen Elizabeth and all the royal family, as well as those who govern our country. Guide them and all who govern our country with the spirit of wisdom and compassion, so that they care for the citizen and the stranger, and bring benefit to all the inhabitants of our country and the world. Bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. Bless our congregation and all its members. Be with those who seek your presence and all who are in need of healing, spiritual or physical. Let them know that you are near to comfort and sustain them. May peace exist in the state of Israel soon and in our time. May you, eternal God, grant blessing to her, established as an age-old dream and home to the oppressed. May its leaders and citizens be inspired with a faithfulness to the aims of its founders, and may the country be imbued with the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice always. May this Shabbat renew our energy to build and sustain a better world and to deepen our gratitude of so much that surrounds us. And let us say Amen.
Amen. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav shemo lavado. We're on page 486. Odu al eretz v'shamayim v'yarem keren yamod teila lechol hasida livnei Israel amravo. Hallelujah. Page 489. Behold, a good doctrine has been given you. Do not forsake it. Let's sit down. A moment to reflect on our portion. My mother thought it was undesirable to be Jewish. The journalist and psychologist Andrew Solomon writes in his magisterial study of exceptional children and parents, Far from the Tree, Parents, Children, and the Search for Identity. She'd learned this view from my grandfather, who kept his religion secret so he could hold a high-level job in a company that didn't employ Jews. She would see people who fit certain stereotypes and say, those people are the ones who give us a bad name. I inherited, so Andrew Solomon wrote, I inherited her gift for discomfort. The undesirability and discomfort of which Solomon writes is familiar to so many of us who have felt ourselves out of step with the majority. Perhaps we want to pass, but we can't. Perhaps we feel protective of our people. This portion today, Balaam observes, there is a people that dwells apart, not reckoned among the nations. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Not reckoned among the nations. What is it to be Jewish? Today, I was thinking of Amos Oz, the wonderful writer, the Sex and the City TV show, the prophet Balaam of today, and David Baddiel, and what they all have in common. And all of them, in a sense, draw us back to the words of Balaam, there is a people that dwells apart, not reckoned amongst the nations. Our commentators ponder the meaning of these phrases. They note a tension. Is dwelling apart from other nations really a blessing and not a curse? Rashi notes this ambivalence of the blessing in his reading. When they, the Israelites, are joyful, there is no nation for them to be joyful with. What's the virtue of joy if there's no one to share it with? We dwell alone because no one else will deign to sit beside us. It's interesting to me that David Baddiel's much-fated book that some of you may have read, Jews Don't Count, almost feeds off the line from Bilam, a people who dwell apart. Baddiel, whose Twitter biography is one word, Jew. The book intrigues. As a secular Jew, he reduces everything to blood, and I can't agree with him there. Because what of those who choose to stay within when they could easily have left? What of those who choose to become Jewish and take that religiosity and tradition on? I see what he suggests about anti-Semitism. A rose by any other name should smell as sweet or not. Why is anti-Jewish racism diminished? He asks. Are we happy to carry that mantle of being a person apart? How do we see ourselves? What of those who might have and could have left well alone, but chose to take on our tradition, our mores, our belief? The book reduces, and yet the legacy and label remain. What does it mean to be a people apart? And the experience of alienation historically and now is real. How much must we stand apart in order to preserve our uniqueness? How do we carry all of this? When I was thinking this morning, I thought of you, Kitty, knowing you'd be here this week, and Roger shared with me about your father and your family coming from Budapest, and your father choosing, Imre choosing to create and be one of the founder members of a synagogue, choosing to stay within the tradition of Judaism after leaving such tragedy and trauma. Amos Oz shared an anecdote from his father in 1930s Poland, where graffiti on the walls suggested in rather rude language that Jews or Yids go home to Palestine, only to return to the same Poland 4 decades later to see similar graffiti, Jews get out of Palestine. Choosing where we rest our gaze says a lot about how we see ourselves as Jews. I am now, as a local rabbi here in North London, part of a North London Jewish leaders WhatsApp group where messages of warning and information about anti-Semitism are posted weekly. This week, as in most weeks at the moment, we were warned of some intelligence that suggested some of those rogue cars with their poisonous messages were once again expected in the Finchley Road area. I know we need it, but there are times when I'm uncomfortable with these messages because, as you can imagine, it encourages a paranoia of even the moderate good guys. So are we always destined to be a nation dwelling apart? Do we dwell apart because we're the victims of contempt, persecution, brutality? Or is it at times maybe through a sense of feeling superior to everyone else? How we encounter a tension embedded in this verse, in this Torah portion, is our people's history and in our people's psychology. So often it's only in the face of opposition and derision that we do learn to celebrate our uniqueness, and celebrate it we must. What of choosing Judaism? In a famous and rather interesting episode of Sex and the City, we see Charlotte, one of the 4 friends, knocking 3 times on the door of her rabbi before he would entertain her request to convert and become Jewish. It wasn't, as many may have thought, a particularly humorous moment in the script. Talmud actually dictates that the prospective proselyte be turned away 3 times in order to truly know and then prove that they are happy and ready to carry the burden, the fear, the hatred of, and difficulties of joining the Jewish people. Charlotte is admitted into class and, as we know, becomes Jewish. But it's not just challah and chicken soup, as we know well, that defines our Jewish identity. Becoming Jewish or remaining Jewish requires such a thoughtful commitment and realigning or relaying of what matters in our lives. It's to open oneself, to choose the Jewish soul again and again and again, and to choose a people that will often be under attack. Do we talk of it enough as the joy and pride in choosing Judaism, whether we are born into it and have to choose again and again, or whether we see it and know that the Jewish soul is there for us? And I can't help but feel that David Baddiel, in his book, Jews Don't Count, misses that idea of religious Judaism. A member of our conversion class here in this synagogue asked me this week, when will I feel that it is me under attack? Surely that is when my Judaism is proved. Yet is it presumptuous to throw my lot in? When will it be that when I hear toxic rhetoric against Jewish women, will I know it is addressed to me as well? Jewish identity is complicated. So was Bilam strangely prescient in anticipating this separateness that would follow through centuries? A people apart? Are we that? Are we still that? Sometimes I see it. I see our security outside synagogues, guards outside Jewish schools, some children emerging from their separate Jewish schools with a real sense of distance and dislocation from the rest of Britain. Are we compounding that sense of being a people apart? And yet the challenge is, how do we create that balance? Where have we come to since Bilam? Where are our communities now? In a not very well-known passage in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, we learned that Balak's, the Moabite king, Balak's great-great-granddaughter was Ruth. Ruth, the book named after her. Ruth the Moabite, Ruth the one who discovers Judaism and gives us such wording of commitment to Judaism. She wasn't born a Hebrew, but she chooses to link her fate and link her life and love to the Hebrew people. And it turns out, as we know, that Ruth's great-grandchild is King David, who is not only perhaps our most inspired political leader, but a poet, a dancer, whose descendants, we are taught, will become messianic. So, how is it that this King Balak, who wanted to curse the Jewish Hebrew people, becomes our descendant as seen by Talmud? It is all about transformation. How does a curse become a blessing? We are living, I am sure, in a moment now where we are redrawing the map of Jewish life. We don't think of non-Jews as people we're afraid of or that we have to keep a distance from. They are literally, often, part of our circles of work, of family, of love. And we must now really reimagine what it might be to draw strength from all the different sources of inspiration, to turn fear into love, to turn all moments scary, painful, into a history of positivity. We must celebrate, we must affirm, we must confirm, we must welcome, we must applaud those who choose to live in the glow of a Jewish life. To that end, this is just a supreme moment to celebrate those who choose to mark such a life moment, a rite of passage in their own lives, to do so in the synagogue. And I say it to you, David and Ruth at home. I say it to you, David and Ruth at home. I can see you on my screen. And I say it to you two here in the synagogue. So I'm going to ask us all to stand, but I'm going to ask you to come forward a little bit, just so I can see you, Roger and Kitty. And I see you on screen, David and Ruth. God, eternal source of blessing, we turn to you in gratitude for the strength and devotion that has preserved and sustained Roger and Kitty and Ruth and David, and permitted both these couples to reach this hour in the midst of family and loved ones. And I see them all behind you in our sanctuary today, Roger and Kitty. You, I am sure, are looking back upon the years that have passed since you, as a couple, Roger and Kitty, and you too, David and Ruth, pledged yourselves to one another. I imagine you remember the moment well. You two married in LJS, you two married here. Many and varied have been your experiences since that day, I am sure. Many have been the mingled occasions of victory and defeat, of fulfillment and disappointment. I'm sure that you both remember the joys that have graced your days with light and beauty, and perhaps the dark storms that have shaken them too. In joys and trials alike, O God, you have been with these two couples. So may you continue to be with them, guiding, sustaining them in the years to come, so that Roger and Kitty and David and Ruth, may God bless you with health and contentment in the circle of your family and all your loved ones near and far. And I ask all of us together to say Amen. And I'm going to ask you also to offer the Shehechianu. I know you as a couple, Roger and Kitty, are hoping to celebrate in Israel. Are you still hoping to get to Israel this year? Later in the year to be able to celebrate. So we offer a Shehechianu for you for having reached this moment, for having remained upright, together, loving, alive to arrive at this time. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. And a huge hearty mazel tov. Mazel tov and siman tov, and mazel tov and siman tov, and mazel tov. Siman tov, mazel tov, and siman tov. Mazal tov to you. Page 519, stay standing as we go to an alternative Aleinu. Make sure I have our Kaddish. Baruch Adonai leolam. Amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael, oseh niflaot lavado. Uvaruch Shem kavodo leolam v'yamaleh kavodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen. V'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu, ye Adonai echad u'shomo echad. Yihi hastacha Adonai aleinu ka'asher yachalnu lach. Kol goyim asher asita yaba'uhu v'yishtachavu lefanecha. Adonai v'kabdu lishmecha. Baruch Adonai bayom. Baruch Adonai balayla. Baruch Adonai b'shochbeinu. Baruch Adonai b'kumenu. Avinu sheba shamayim yached shimcha v'kayam malchutecha tamid. Umloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. We turn now to the yahrzeits that fall at this time. We're on page 524 to follow Kaddish together. For many of us, the yahrzeit list comes at the end of the service and is just a stream of names, but we know how significant for loved ones reaching that moment, year on, year in, to be able to mark and recall with love those that they have lost. Today in our congregation, we think particularly of Simone Baines, mother of Alan Baines, of Ralph Cass, father of Carolyn Collins, of Harry Cooper, father of Simon Cooper, of Diana Gould, mother of Stuart Gould, of Louis Hellner, father of Rabbi Frank Hellner, of Adina Lazarus, daughter of Myrna Lazarus, and of Stephen Urbach, brother of Leslie Urbach. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. And may we stand alongside those who recall and remember their loved ones as we offer the words of the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, B'yamar divrach Yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayachon u'v'yomechon, V'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Magala v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mavorach le'olam, Amen Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithada v'yithalal Shemei d'kudusha brichu, Leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei adam, v'imru, Amen. Let's sit down, and over to you, Tamara, I think, for announcements.
Good morning, everybody, and Shabbat Shalom.
Hold on, we're just unmuting you, Tamara, to hear you in the synagogue.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rebecca?
No, we can't hear Tamara yet. Hold on one sec, Tamara.
How's that?
Perfect.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Hearty welcome to Finchley Progressive Synagogue this morning. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the service. And of course, it's a great pleasure on behalf of the community to wish a very hearty mazel tov to you, David and Ruth, and Kitty and Roger, on the occasions of your anniversaries. It really is one of the great privileges and delights of community life to have the opportunity to share with people in these really special moments in their lives. And David and Ruth, thank you to you both for allowing us to do that with you every year. And to you, Kitty and Roger, on this very auspicious occasion of your golden anniversary. Mazel tov, thank you, and best wishes from all of us in the community to you. Thank you also to Barbara Schulman for reading the community prayers for us today. A few community announcements. Tonight, KT3 and KT4, which are our KT year groups who persist in continuing beyond the 2 years of the KT programme because they love to see each other, will be meeting together for the first time in many months in Rabbi Rebecca's garden. Thank you, Rebecca, for hosting them. Tomorrow morning, Rebecca is leading a discussion of inheritance in Parashat Pinchas in Cafe Ivrea at 10. This week, unusually, I'm going to be recommending 2 events that are parts of a series of events being delivered outside FPS. And the first is at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. It's part of a series by Jewish Renaissance magazine that's being supported by the Lions Learning Project as well, on the subject Jewish Black Lives Matter. And the link is in our community email. You'll need to register for the event. Tomorrow evening's session is about African Jewish lives, the Ethiopian Jews left behind, with Rabbi Sybil Sheridan and Avraham Negin, who's an Ethiopian Jew who emigrated to Israel in the 1980s, and he campaigns now for the return to Israel of those left behind in Ethiopia and against the discrimination faced by Ethiopian Jews within Israel. That event, as I say, is tomorrow evening at 6, and the link is in the email. Our normal activities are continuing this week. It's a rather special delving session on Wednesday at 7, looking back at the year of learning together with student presentations. So that may be of particular interest to those of you who are perhaps not regular delving participants. On the same evening as the second of the external events I want to commend to you. And this is it's at 7 o'clock, and this is a part of a series by Liberal Judaism called Finding the Liberal Jewish Voice, Expanding the Conversation on Israel. Sharon Booth, who is the Executive Director of Solutions Not Sides, is going to be leading a training on understanding anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in discussions of Israel-Palestine. And that event you can access through the Liberal Judaism website. If you go to the website, you'll be able to find that and to register there to see that event tomorrow night at 7. On Thursday at 7:30, we're going to be continuing that same discussion where I think so many of us at the moment are really looking to find ways that we can have constructive conversations and discussions and expand our own learning and understanding about the current situation in Israel. And we're so lucky to have the New Israel Fund as our charity this year and to be able to partner with them. And they're going to be leading 2 Beit Midrash events. The first is it's Thursday night, as I say, at 7:30. It's on the subject of words, definitions, and language. And it's about understanding the situation in Israel, Palestine at the moment. And the second session will be next week, also at 7:30, and it's about a future for Israel, building a better future in light of recent events. And that's it for community announcements for today. Once again, a hearty mazel tov to our anniversary celebrants, and Shabbat Shalom to all.
Finish our service with the Don Olam, and then I'm going to call on Renzo for a special treat as we go into Kiddush. So be aware, hum along a little bit, resist the urge to sing, page 525. Adon Olam Hashem B'terem kol yitzin nivra le'et nasa b'chetzo kol azai melech shamo nikra v'acharei kitlot hakol levado yemloch nora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yeh b'tifara v'hu echad v'en sheni laham shilo lahachbira b'li reshit b'li tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'hamizra v'hu eli v'hayagoli v'tzohev li be'et Sarah v'hu nisi u'manos li manat kosi b'yom ekra bi'ado avkid ruchi be'et ishan be'aira v'yimruchi gaviati Adonai li v'lo ira. A final blessing for all of us. Let's stand as we then go into Kiddush. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yavarech et amo v'shalom. Eternal God, give strength to your people Israel. Eternal God, bless your people with peace. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. So Renzo has been known in the building to sing O Sole Mio on the occasion of anniversaries, and today will be no different, but from his home. So let's see whether we can hear that before we just finish our service with Kiddush. Renzo, over to you.
Thank you very much. David, this is for you, and Ruth had a special request. The song, as you know, it is called O Sole Mio, which in Italian it means, Oh my son. And today we have a song specially for you. Okay. Che bella cosa una giornata al sole, l'aria serena dopo una tempesta, per l'aria fresca pare già una festa. Che bella cosa una giornata al sole, ma no, tu sole, più bello in me. Oh sole mio, sta in fronte a te. Oh sole mio, sta in fronte a te. Sta in fronte a Ruth.
Thank you.
Well done, Renzo. Beautiful. It makes us remember the moments where you stand over the Kiddush table. Thank you so much. So for those who choose to stay for Kiddush, but you can't eat yet, those of you who are going home to make Kiddush at home, you've all been amazing, you kids who have been in a whole service all the way through. I have one job for any children that would like to do it, is that inside the ark are hidden 3 cuddly Torah scrolls that need to find their way back to the family room. So if you would like to find them in the ark and take them back to the family room, that would help all of us as we stand for Kiddush. So when you are ready, do stand. They can open properly. Let them. Yeah? Okay. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam barit olam beini uvein b'neihem Yisa Adonai Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. There are 2 tiny ones in there that you should be able to see. And over the Halah, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You find them? Fantastic. Take them back to the family room and pop them in the Shabbat
Shalom, everybody.
Wonderful.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Renzo. God bless you.
Shabbat Shalom.
That was very.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And thank
One
you.
more time, please, Renzo.
That was wonderful, Renzo. David, I so enjoyed